much money do you think college professors make? If I were to tell you the average professor in the United States makes somewhere close to minimum wage, you would probably tell me I was full of shit. And I get it. It sounds absurd. When we think of professors, we imagine old guys in tweed jackets and middle-aged women in smart shoes who make $80,000 to $180,000 a year, not including healthcare benefits and combined months of vacation time. They live comfortable lives, spending their days shaping the minds of the next generation of scholars. They're the torchbearers of academia. They're intellectual elites. But this is a myth. It's made up. Doesn't exist. Well, it does exist. These people aren't unheard of, and if you've been to college, chances are you've had a few professors who fit this description. But this isn't the norm when it comes to teachers in higher ed. It's not even close. Most college and university teachers look less like this and more like this. But before I get into how our economic system forces educators to resort to exhausting and often degrading work because they have no other choice if they want to put food on the table, let me tell you about today's sponsor, Birch. My partner and I recently moved, and when we were looking for a new mattress, we absolutely fell in love with Birch. Birch is a premium mattress-in-a-box company that makes mattresses and sleep products that are stylish, comfortable, and environmentally conscious. Their mattresses are non-toxic, crafted with sustainably sourced organic and natural materials, and they are made right here in America. Birch mattresses don't use any harsh chemicals in manufacturing, so not only are they extremely comfortable, but they're also a great choice if you have sensitive skin, like I do. Birch also ensures that their materials are harvested sustainably, and they work with ethical partners that adhere to strict social, environmental, and economic standards, and they've even gotten all of these certifications that show, yes, they are definitely ethically produced and sustainably sourced, can confirm. I got the Birch Luxe mattress, which is a premium version of their original Birch Natural mattress, and I've had it for about 3 months and I absolutely love it. It is super comfortable and it's amazing quality, and it's a product that I know has been made in a way that is good for the earth. You just can't beat that. But the best part about all of this is that Birch delivers your mattress right to your door and for free if you are in the US. It comes rolled up in a box and it is super easy to set up yourself, as long as you don't have a 75-pound German Shepherd who desperately wants to help. I don't know that I can move you and the mattress at the same time. When you get your mattress, you also get 2 Eco-Rest pillows made from recycled plastic bottles, and they are genuinely some of the softest pillows I have ever used. Each Birch mattress comes with a 25-year warranty, and you also get a 100-night sleep trial, so you get more than 3 months to make sure that you love it. And if you don't, they'll pick it up for you and you will get a full refund. I love my Birch mattress, so if you're looking for a new bed, check out Birch using the link below, or go to birchliving.com/ZoeB, and if you use my link, you can get $400 off your mattress plus 2 free pillows. And thanks again to Birch for sponsoring. Alright, back to the video. When I talk about the exploitation of professors, I am not talking about those tweed coat-wearing tenured professors who make 6-figure salaries. I am talking about an entire subcategory of professors who you probably don't even know exist. I'm talking about the type of professor that I was before I became a YouTuber. I'm talking about what's called contingent faculty. So who are these contingent faculty? Well, broadly speaking, academic jobs in the US can be broken down into tenure track and non-tenure track. So tenure is a special academic role that marks you as being an important and permanent member of the faculty. It makes it harder for you to get fired, allows you more academic freedom, gets you a pretty significant raise, and comes with the implicit understanding that you're being hired on a permanent, or at least long-term, basis. On the tenure track side, there are various tiers of professors, from assistant professors at the bottom to associate professors who have more freedom and can start applying for tenure, to full professors, or just professors, who almost always have tenure, get to teach the upper-level classes, and also often have administrative roles in their departments. On the non-tenure track side, we have adjunct professors, lecturers, instructors, in-residence professors, postdocs, and TAs. These are the people who work either part-time or full-time, mostly focus on teaching rather than research, and have year-by-year or semester-by-semester contracts. These are our contingent faculty. These positions, unlike the tenure track ones, do not come with any guarantees. The implicit understanding is that you are being hired on a part-time, as-needed basis, and the school can just choose to not renew your contract at the end of the semester. So up through the 1960s, the ratio of tenure track to non-tenure track looked like this. But then things started to change in the 1970s, and now it looks like this. The ratio did a full 180, and now studies are showing that 70% or more of all college faculty are contingent. Now, of course, these numbers are true broadly speaking, but when you get down to individual schools, they can vary widely. Contingent faculty are much less common at the Ivy Leagues and at small private liberal arts colleges, where the number is between 15 and 40% depending on the school. Then we have our big research universities that sit between 50 and 60% contingent, and smaller public universities between 60 and 75%. And finally, community colleges, where we have a whopping 75 to 98% contingent faculty rate. Like literally, I looked up the data for the community college near my hometown and it has 98% contingent faculty. It's absurd. Okay, a lot of faculty are contingent. Like almost 3/4 of all college professors are contingent. But what does that actually mean? Well, it means that almost 3/4 of all college professors are making barely minimum wage, and sometimes even less than minimum wage. According to the American Association of University Professors, the average pay for contingent faculty is $2,700 per class. And by per class, I don't mean that every time they hold a class they get $2,700. I mean that for each entire section they teach, they get that much across the whole semester. So $2,700 per 3-credit-hour class is the average, and when I was an instructor at a large Catholic research university in the Midwest, that's about what I was paid. But that's just the average, and just like the proportion of contingent faculty, this number varies from school to school. Some schools can pay upwards of $5,000 or $6,000 per class or more, and others, well, when I was an adjunct professor at a local community college, I was paid $1,500 per class. $1,500 across an entire semester. That's $100 a week. And sure, you might say that's just one class. Most teachers don't just teach one class per semester. The usual teaching load is 4-4, or 4 classes in the fall and another 4 classes in the spring. So if you have 8 classes a year at $2,700 per class, that comes out to $21,600. And this is all pre-tax, too, so keep that in mind that no one is actually bringing home this much money. Now, that's definitely low. It's below the poverty line for families of 3 or more, but as an individual, it's not the worst. But let's do some math to figure out what the actual hourly wages are per class. So most classes are 3 credit hours, which means that you have 3 hours of class per week. Across a 15-week semester, that is 45 hours, and that's just class time. You also need to factor in prep work and grading, which can be anywhere from 2 to 6 additional hours for every class session. Let's err on the lighter side and say that your class time plus your prep time comes out to 10 hours a week. That is 150 hours over a 15-week semester, and if we divide our average pay by those 150 hours, we get an hourly rate of $18 per hour. If you taught at my old community college, though, you would only be making $10 an hour. And that's if you're spending as little time on work as possible. If you spend more time on planning, reading, prepping, grading, especially if you're a writing teacher who has to grade essays, not to mention the end of semester rush with exams and papers, you can spend upwards of 300 or 400 hours each semester, which brings those hourly rates down to minimum wage or less. For the average pay, that puts you at $9 an hour, just over minimum wage, and that can be even less depending on how much work you put in. For the amount of work I did for my writing classes that I taught at the community college, I made around $5 an hour. That's below minimum wage, for a job that requires a graduate degree. One of my main sources for this video, the Adjunct Underclass, has a lot of this kind of math in it, so I definitely recommend checking it out if you want more detailed breakdowns of these kind of calculations, because it's actually kind of sickening to see it all laid out like this. Because each class pays so little, contingent faculty often end up having to work multiple jobs just to make ends meet. There are horror stories of adjuncts who teach at 3 or 4 different schools and have 18-hour days filled with teaching, prepping, grading, and driving to and from their 4 separate teaching jobs. And sometimes even that isn't enough. Around 25% of part-time faculty are on public assistance. There are professors who have to sleep in their cars. There are professors who are homeless, professors who cannot afford medical care because, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, none of these jobs include any kind of benefits either. Being a contingent worker of any kind, whether it's being an adjunct professor or being a gig worker or hell, even being a YouTuber, can also be really hard on your mental health because you don't have the security that comes from a consistent full-time salaried job, and the community is fractured at best. You are constantly unsure about your future. You don't know if you'll have a job in 6 months, and that can make it hard to put down roots or make any kind of long-term plans, and that is really, really bad for our brains. To make matters worse, contingent faculty are often ignored or just outright not known about, and schools keep it that way. They perpetuate the myths that most contingent positions are made for working professionals who have day jobs outside teaching. You know, they're lawyers teaching law classes or writers teaching creative writing classes. Or that if you're an adjunct for long enough, then maybe one day the school will hire you on as a full-time professor. But these are myths. Think about it like food service workers. Many people argue that people who work fast food don't actually need to make $15 an hour because they're just high school kids. What do they need all that money for? But this ignores all the people working fast food who aren't just high school kids, and all the high school kids who do need the money. The ones who may actually need to help provide for their families because their parents are unemployed or are underpaid at their jobs or 1,000 other reasons. Also, we should just pay people a living wage without having to do all of these weird purity tests to see if they deserve it. All jobs should pay enough to live on. Anyway, this contingent faculty issue is similar to that. Sure, some percentage of contingent faculty are employed elsewhere and just teach periodically on the side, but this is a small minority of all faculty, and we shouldn't have entire policies and systems built on the faulty assumption that most contingent faculty are like this. These positions are filled by all kinds of people with all kinds of needs, and they should be adequately compensated for their labor. And the idea that you can start as an adjunct and end up as a full professor, it's just like the myth that you can start in the mailroom or as a janitor and work your way up to CEO. It's a story of a bygone era. That kind of stuff died decades ago. Sure, it happens once in a blue moon, but so does winning the lottery. Doesn't mean you should bank on it. As it stands right now, contingent faculty are being asked to do all the same things as regular full faculty, but doing more with less freedom, fewer perks, no community, and less than half the pay. They're being hired because schools know that they are desperate, and they're taking advantage of that desperation. It isn't sustainable. But why should we care, right? Lots of people are underpaid and exploited. That's not news. But this isn't something that just affects these individual teachers. This is something that is bad for everyone. First and foremost, it hurts students. It's not that contingent faculty are bad teachers, they aren't. It's that their conditions aren't conducive to facilitating a good education. As Marc Bousquet says in How the University Works, working in McDonald's kitchen, even the talent of Wolfgang Puck is pressed into the service of the Quarter Pounder. In other words, even the greatest teacher in the world couldn't be a great teacher under these conditions. Overworked teachers have a harder time giving each student the care and attention they deserve, and so their education suffers. Yeah, they would make more money per hour if they put in fewer hours, but putting in fewer hours by cutting corners like reusing lesson plans or replacing assessments with simple quizzes or grading using cookie-cutter rubrics instead of providing substantive responses to students' work or just not adjusting anything about the class based on feedback or experience, that's not good for students. Contingent teachers also don't always have deep connections to the schools they're teaching at, in part because they're not long-term faculty, but also because they might be teaching at multiple schools, each of which with their own policies and programs. So teachers aren't always able to help guide their students toward all the resources available to them, because they don't know they exist. I can't explain to you how to use the school's learning management system because I'm not super familiar with it because I was hired literally 3 days ago. No, I can't help you find the financial aid office because I don't know where it is because I just got here. And because contingent faculty don't know how long they're going to be at their school since their contracts are usually semester by semester, it's really hard to form any long-term relationships with students. I have had so many students ask me if they could take any other classes from me in the future, or who asked if I would be willing to write them letters of recommendation down the line, and I had to be honest with them that I didn't know. I didn't know if I was going to be there to do those things for them. And when you don't know if you are ever going to see those kids again, why would you bother trying to get to know them? Why would you care about them as anything more than just names on the papers that you have to grade? Contingent faculty also often have to teach pre-built courses, classes designed by someone else who knows how many years ago. So they're just handed syllabi that list exactly what they have to cover every single day with no room for change and forced to teach whatever they've been given. That's not good for students or for teachers. When I was hired at the community college, I was literally sent a syllabus 3 days before the semester started, told to teach it, and warned that if I deviated from it, I would be punished. No matter that I literally had a graduate degree in English specializing in the teaching of writing, and that this class was actually built really badly, and the assignments were just atrocious, and honestly, I felt like it was going to be actively bad for the students. But there was nothing I could do. Sure, it meant that there was less prep work for me, but at what cost? When we take the laughably low pay into account, you can see how we're basically incentivizing our teachers to put in as little effort as they can, because it's literally impossible to be a great teacher for every student when you're overworked, and every extra hour you work means that your wages are spread thinner and thinner. When you're overworked, underpaid, and forced to make bland cookie-cutter stuff, you don't have the ability to experiment or push boundaries or even just be there for your students. And students are suffering because of it. These conditions are also bad for society at large. And I know, it sounds like I'm doing the video essayist thing where I go way too deep and act like some niche concept is like super important, I swear. But really, it actually is this time. The issues at play here represent larger societal issues, and schools are perpetuating inequalities when they engage in these practices. Contingent teaching is stratified by class, where the cheapest schools hire the most contingent faculty, so students who can only afford to attend community colleges are more likely to get the professors who aren't paid enough or are too busy to give each student the attention they deserve. So their education suffers, whereas the wealthier students who can afford to go to the liberal arts schools and the Ivy Leagues get higher quality educations by faculty who can literally afford to focus more on their students. The wealthy get the better educations that lead to better lives, and the rest of us get what's left. Teachers themselves are also stratified by gender and race. Contingent faculty are overwhelmingly more likely to be women, and people of color are also disproportionately represented in contingent positions over tenure-track ones. When schools rely more on contingent labor, they are knowingly relying on underpaid women and people of color, both groups that historically have struggled to be paid fairly and to be taken seriously in academia. All these issues affect higher ed as a whole, too, because when we see more and more professors being overworked and struggling to provide high-quality educations, it makes our schools look bad. We see college classes being taught by fry cooks and think that that class must not be very rigorous, without stopping to see that that teacher has to have another job because their teaching position doesn't pay well enough. We see hastily graded papers and think those teachers must be lazy, or writing classes are a waste of time, without stopping to see that that teacher is making pennies for staying up late to grade hundreds of papers across the 6 classes she has to teach just to make ends meet. We blame teachers for devaluing higher ed, but fail to see that it is higher ed that is devaluing our teachers. It's worth thinking about why schools are continuing to run like this. Now, I'm not going to be getting into every single one of higher ed's many issues, at least not in this video, but leave a comment down below if you do want me to tear apart the college system with facts and logic. The reason teachers are experiencing poverty is the same reason anyone else working full-time can experience poverty. Businesses are incentivized to prioritize profits and customers over their employees, and universities are becoming businesses. Bloated administrations want to run their schools as cheaply as possible and attract more and more customers. They want to provide their product to their customers at the lowest possible cost to themselves. And one way to cheaply provide lots of passable educations to lots of students willing to spend money is to hire contingent faculty. This is also the reason that schools have gotten more expensive even as they're hiring more and more cheap labor. Well, this along with less public funding, but that's a whole other thing. Instead of adequately compensating their workers, they believe that a better use of their resources is to focus on attracting new customers. So they get shiny new facilities and build new sports stadiums and subscribe to the newest learning management systems instead of paying their workers. Now, none of these things is necessarily bad on its own. Spending money on those things first, before making sure that your employees are compensated for their labor, and then jacking up tuition costs, is what's bad. They'll do anything except pay teachers more. Like, look at this email that I received when I was working at the community college. They wanted to know what they could do to make their adjuncts happier without paying us more. Like, they say, it's a given that base salary concerns are always present, but beyond that, how can the college help you as an adjunct? For instance, do you have any suggestions related to improvements for adjunct compensation other than a change in the rate of compensation? Like, what does that even mean? What do they want us to say? Like, pizza parties? Give me ping pong tables. Give us pool tables in the break room. We didn't even have a break room. Give us a break room. What do they want us to say? They know that they're not paying us enough, and they're willing to do anything to keep us employed except pay us more. Editing Zoe here to say that while I was checking my old school email to bring this email up, I actually found an email that all of the adjuncts received relatively recently that said that the Faculty Senate had actually decided to increase the compensation rate for adjuncts because, as they say, the current compensation rate affects our ability to recruit and retain qualified adjunct faculty. Who would have guessed? But while I do think that this is great, they are increasing the pay by $200 per credit hour, which I think isn't enough, but is at least a step forward. Honestly, I think this is too little too late. I just felt like this was an important thing to bring up. But back to the video. That's my cat trying to get in. Anyway, this basically all comes down to the idea that universities are just the newest victims of the gig economy. Contingent faculty are gig workers. They're working short-term contracts for people who don't really care about them, they just care about outsourcing labor to the cheapest option available. Who cares if it's bad for the workers? It's great for the bottom line. And just like businesses don't want their workers to fraternize too much, or they might see that they're stronger together, so too do schools keep their contingent faculty firmly othered so they can keep exploiting them. As Marc Bousquet says in How the University Works, the contingent position is overwhelmingly designed to disable solidarity, face-to-face encounters, and the emergence of a sense of common culture and communal interest. They know what they're doing, because they learned it from the best. Universities have become businesses. They've stopped caring about knowledge and the common good and started caring only about customers and money. They see contingent faculty as a quick fix to get more and more students without caring about the toll that it's taking on those teachers or on the students. So let's recap. Schools are making more and more contingent positions to save themselves money. So those are the positions that teachers end up having to take. When you're in those positions, you are paid next to nothing, so unless you're independently wealthy, you pretty much have to teach as many classes as possible, sometimes across multiple schools, just to make ends meet. But when you take on that much work, it becomes harder and harder to actually spend as much time and energy as you should to be the best teacher you can be, let alone do all those extra things you need to keep up your professional resume. So you end up cutting corners just to keep your head above water, which ends up hurting the quality of your teaching. And then you realize that the one thing that you wanted to do has been ruined because of this awful, broken system that we're living in. And it's so unfair, and you know that it's killing you, so you finally get up the courage to leave, and it breaks your heart. This sucks, but what can we do about it? Well, seriously, like, the only thing that I can think of is that we should bring back more public funding for public schools, at least. If schools could be run like a public good instead of like a business, then maybe they could treat their faculty like they're actually doing something good for society, rather than as employees making money for a business that will try to cut costs everywhere it can. But if we want more public funding, that's going to require overhauling the way that higher education is viewed. Because, at least here in the US, a lot of folks don't really trust schools anymore. Whether it's because of fears over critical race theory, or communist indoctrination, or what have you, a lot of folks on the right don't think that universities are good, and they sure as hell don't want their tax dollars going towards the brainwashing of their children. So, if we could just go ahead and just change the entire public opinion on higher ed, that'd be great. But seriously, the AAUP, or the American Association of University Professors, was one of my most useful sources for this video, and their website is full of things that people both inside and outside of academia can do to help make these systems a little more equitable. I have links to their website down below, including links to all of the data that I got for this video. They are honestly just an amazing resource. Other than that, I think we just need to be aware of the issue. Anytime that you see people talk about how college professors are all these upper-class, wealthy, intellectual elites, share this video with them. If you've been a contingent faculty member, share your story. It is more important than ever to talk about what we've gone through, how we've been exploited by these systems, and how they hold on to us with empty promises of maybe one day letting us into the special club that we have been promised since grad school. Because right now, we're just being told to stop complaining and refocus on the positive because the adjunct model is here to stay. And if that's true, we're just going to see more and more contingent faculty until they are all we have. Schools will become little factories producing poor quality but consistent products, and only the wealthiest among us will have the opportunity to have any real creative academic experiences. Higher ed will crumble, and they will have brought it on themselves. This is something that everyone should be able to get behind. People who care about labor being fairly compensated, people who care about faculty having academic freedom, people who just want to be able to go to university and have good teachers. No one wins when contingent faculty are treated like this. But maybe, if we see our students and our faculty as human beings worthy of respect and care, whose lives we should understand and work with, not as cookie-cutter customers who all get the same prefab, fungible Big Mac educations through factory model schooling, then we can actually have our schools be for everyone. Now, I don't know how to get there. I don't know if it's even possible without tearing down all of our existing systems, but the bottom line is that this current system isn't sustainable. We cannot keep living like this. Something has to change. Thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. Like I said, this video is really just scratching the surface of what's wrong with higher ed, but I hope that you enjoyed, and if you did, be sure to like and subscribe and share and comment and all the things. And consider sharing this with any college educators or grad students in your lives, because this is one of those dark sides of academia that just no one really talks about. And like I said in the video, we should talk about it. I want to give a big thank you to my patrons and channel members whose names are scrolling by here. And I want to give an especially huge thanks to A Tasty Snack, Adam, Andrew, GhostEye419, Jaded Flames, Justin Lowry, Nicholas Welch, and Robert Bradford. Like I said in my end of year update video, I'm going to be relying more on Patreon and channel memberships this year, so everyone who has joined the Patreon or channel memberships, You really are making a difference. Like, I wouldn't be able to do any of this without the support from all of you. So if you want to become a patron or a member, I have links down below, and I also have links to the channel Discord server if you want to hang out with all of these super cool people who watch my videos, because all of you are super cool. But I'm about out of time, so before I go, here's my Patreon poem of the video, the segment at the end of each of my videos where I write a poem for a randomly selected patron. This one is for the little monster number 3. The Little Dancer. She was a trapeze artist, so breathlessly delicate, her costume of chitin and lace. She danced that ancient tarantella, all ecstasy and legs, just for you, in that dark corner above the bathroom door. And until next time, stay safe, stay warm, and I will see y'all again soon, I hope. Bye, folks.